Welcome back to another episode of Ramblings of a Madman. I'm here with Adam Nichols. How you doing, bud?
How's it going, man?
Not too bad. So you're an environmental project manager in Texas. How's that going?
Pretty good. I work for the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. I manage Superfund sites, it's pretty much it. Just call contractors. It's pretty easy. Just manage timetables, keep it going. Most of the Superfund sites are pretty old, so it's not like anything super exciting, like actually like emergency response. But it's consistent and easiest job in the world. I shouldn't get paid more than McDonald's people. How about you?
That's really cool. I'm a water well drilling instructor. So we just go out. We're drilling a hole right now out in Death Valley in the desert. We're going to drill 650 feet, teaching people how to do it, safely and environmentally conscious. So I think
nice.
I think we have that in common, that we deal a little bit with the environment anyway.
That's good. Very cool.
Yeah.
Something in common.
That's right. Man, how long has it been?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Since on Facebook, probably 2 years, apparently, according to the messenger logs. But since I saw you, probably, something a long time. 2011?
Yeah,
I think it was 2011. Yeah, right around Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was fun. Good times.
Yeah,
Good
for sure.
times.
Yeah.
So, do you have any topics lined up? I listened to a few of your other episodes. Seemed to start organized, and this ended up going a scattered direction.
They were. I didn't want to jump too heavy into politics, but that's kind of what I had lined up. I wanted to know what your what your view on economic policy should be like, as far as overall like macro, and then we'll kind of work our way micro. You know what I mean? Like between
the way I think is starts opposite. It should always start micro and then go. That's the I do, because at least that's my take on it. That's going to be the difference, the fundamental difference in our takes, I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe. So where do you think it starts in?
I think it starts with what we have. Because people move around, people are everywhere, but it really starts in where you are. So I think your economy really should start with your resources in the area, and I think economic policy probably should start with making sure that the resources are utilized in a good stewarded way that keeps us around a long time, and maybe even reverses climate change. Wouldn't that be a fancy feat?
That would be.
I don't understand.
No, I completely agree with you there. I think we have to be conscious, especially of our resources around us, of the people. There's a lot of that's the whole thing with with economics, is there's a lot of pieces to it. It's not just There's no. Definitely. I don't think there's any one right answer. I think it's all very nuanced, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah, they have a variety of different classes in it and every nuance. So I'm quite sure that there's a lot of stuff that neither of us could possibly understand about the workings. That just if they can study it, then it's a system. Then it's good times.
I know since our last discussion, you brought up Marx and socialism, and I've done a lot of research on that since. I gotta tell you, I've learned a lot.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's not what people say.
No.
At all. But that makes sense. People just like to brand each other with the terms of last generation's scare tactics.
Yeah. I definitely I've noticed that. A lot of the the dialogue has certainly shifted over the years, but a lot of it has kind of stuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People decided that free things is what Marx was all about. I'm not sure why.
Yeah. Well, it certainly seems like that. My whole thing with socialism is it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, especially since it's never been fully adopted by anyone.
Well, then if we're going to discuss socialism, we should define it so that way we know what we're both discussing.
I agree.
Okay, so what I understand socialism, and socialism wasn't actually defined or differentiated by Marx from communism at all. He was using those terms interchangeably. But what it's evolved to believe, or most people call it, is like the transition state between between modern day, whatever happens to be, and communism.
Right.
And the transition state of socialism is essentially the workers' democracy. And it's after whatever this government economy is no longer functioning. The workers' democracy would essentially be the concept of classes. Do you know how class was defined by Marx?
Not particularly.
So he defined class and state very particularly, and that was the foundation of his book Capital, which I have not read, but I've read the short abridged idea of a pamphlet for worker people. If someone was a little worker beast, the Communist Manifesto was like 45 pages. It's like their salesman's guide. For the random person, the Capital was more for the philosophers and the debaters. Yeah. I definitely don't have the political science education or the willpower to read a book that's yay thick, about 2 inches for our listeners, and it doesn't have very big fonts, so it's it's difficult to read. But the short abridged version essentially describes the concept of after the revolution. So I'll start with class. I'm going in a circle. I've never actually talked about politics in a form that I'll be recorded afterward, and I work for the government, so I have to be very particular. Because for example, if I were to be mistaken for advocating for revolution, which in no way am I doing that. In New York, for example, I could lose my driver's license, which I'm not in New York. But it has repercussions. So the freedom of speech is not universal where you're standing in the United States. And what you can and can't say is very different. You can't curse on Virginia Beach. And you can't advocate for revolution in the New York State. So I'm not advocating for revolution because you never know where I'll live. But that's not what I'm doing. So what I'm saying is class is a group of people who all have a similar life experience. Like material conditions was how he defined the life experience. Like people who had a similar house, a similar lifestyle. That would be a similar class. And he defines state as an organization designed to separate the classes, to keep the upper class and upper class over other classes, right? Okay. So when communists say that there will be no government, and there is no government, and non-communists are saying what you're describing sounds a whole lot like so much government, it's ridiculous. It's because there's no state in a communist world, because there's one class in this fantasy that we have all share, that communists share of communism. It's because there's no state, because there's one class, no one needs to separate another, so it all just kind of works is the idea. And socialism is the way you get there theoretically. After there's no organization, then the workers, because that's us, everyone who earns a wage, takes a paycheck, makes profit for the man, whoever the man might be, even if they're a woman, etc. So the working class would theoretically, it's also called the dictatorship or the proletariat. The proletariat's a fancy way of saying worker. Okay. And it's because the working class would be the new state for that moment in time. That socialist state would be the workers voting, like a direct democracy style. He even described it in the manifesto, and how he thought it would be. And the reason why it's called communism is because in every area it's community. Whatever you just define community, people who live in an even more similar lifestyle, right? People who live in an area of the piney woods of East Texas, for example, be a community, hypothetically, maybe smaller communities, I don't know. But they would all get together and they'd vote. And as a commune, and that was what he called it, they'd vote on ideas and they'd have a representative, and that would go up to a ladder of regional and blah, blah. He just described it was like a statter step direct democracy with representative crap on larger areas, like representatives that went up. He described it, and it's a 45-page book, but it separates. It was intended to describe his ideas to the worker, so it's really easy to understand, even though it's kind of strangely worded because it's been translated like 1 million times.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't.
Sorry for the monologue. I know it's switching back and forth.
No, the idea of workers being in charge is certainly a good idea, but the problem with that, obviously, is you need to organize that.
Right, and so who
just
organizes a factory would be the factory manager, right? The factory manager is the one who organizes the factory. He's like, figures out the shifts, he makes sure that either he orders the logistical stuff or the logistical stuff is ordered by the logistical guy, etc. You know, like that's all done by a worker. You know, sometimes the owner's a worker. It happens sometimes, but it's the workers should be the one to make the decisions. That's the idea, because everything starts out with like your own personal sphere of like ecosystem, right? Like you wake up and you go to work and you buy stuff with that work, right? In the socialist sphere, there would definitely be money still, 100%, right? So, yeah. So like you go to work and that's your material conditions, that's your ecosphere. So like you should be the influential in the decisions that affect your ecosphere. If you start at the bottom, if you start to see like what the natural resources are around and what you have already, what's already there, like in a perfect world, the factory that's already sitting there, or what have you. You know, that's the right now the natural resources. That's what it's there. You know, it's just there already. You know, people should just organize around it. Who's going to stop them?
I know.
Because if there's no government, there's no need for people to stop them. You know, everyone just does what they need to do, buys what they need with the stuff they're doing. Everyone's happy. Everyone eats. Place to sleep. There's all these places to sleep, and no one can use them because. Sorry, there's a spider. I'm trying to murder it. That's what the dancing and stuff is. Again.
Yeah.
I'm a vegan, yeah, so I'm not really vegan because I'm killing spiders, but like, yeah, so I thought that was funny.
You're vegan?
Yeah, hypocritical. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was vegan in college because it was when it was environmental science, and they had this simulation. It was like, how many worlds? Everyone lived like you. How many worlds? What do we need? And it was definitely more than one until you like stopped eating meat, stopped driving, stopped basically doing anything that we do in society. Yeah, good times. So I think we need to restructure society around what the world's capable of sustaining. Like car culture, we should probably try to redefine as a society as well, just to get you more into politics.
We are
you down that lane.
But see, we are though. We're already moving in that direction.
Away from car culture or toward tunnels, more tunnels for cars and more lanes. Every highway gets more lanes.
More sustainable car vehicles, I should say.
You say sustainable car vehicles, but electric vehicles are just as bad for the environment as gas vehicles. This is coming from an environmental scientist. Well, by the way, every opinion that comes out of my mouth is not the opinion of my work. It's just the opinion of me, and I am an idiot. Welcome to disclaimers. Legal disclaimer. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor.
Okay. I'm not a political advisor either.
Yeah.
I don't know what advice I'm giving, but
buy Bitcoin.
I echo all the same disclaimers if I can. But
yeah,
nobody should be taking advice from me anyway.
Yeah, same.
So
not qualified.
I want to get to that point that you just made about we can't. We're not moving more towards a more sustainable culture already. How much do you think that we're not?
Car culture specifically, I think that we're leaning towards making everything electric, right? And you see the problems with that already, even before. So like I don't know numbers, so I'm not going to make up numbers, right? So like there's lots of cars on the road, right? There's a large number, and a very, very small number of them are electric, right? Sure. Very, very small percentage-wise, tiny percent. This is talking about the United States, because we don't, we don't know shit about the world. You know what I mean? India doesn't have a lot of cars per population because whatever. So like this is America that I know anything about that we need to affect, right? So a lot of cars, very few electric. We're supposed to increase our demand by the percentage that's not electric, right? That's the idea. Get all the gas off the road because we're going towards a more sustainable future. That's a lot of lithium. That's a lot of nickel and cobalt. I think is the new battery they're aiming at. That's a lot of whatever. Like a lot. That's going to destabilize probably economies. It's already proven it has destabilized economy through. I'm not like a political scientist, and I wasn't there. But like wasn't Bolivia overthrown by Elon Musk just to get lithium already? And that's like before people even like That's before Biden got on the Elon, electric vehicle, thing. That was before that. You know what I mean? So like the demand is so much higher than supply already. You know, that's my issue. And they're extraordinarily heavy. So like they're so much heavier than a regular car, and they damage the roads. Right? They put more. They leak shit out of their tires because of the weight that other cars don't, and they damage the roads. And the roads are made primarily from petroleum and toxic metals and stuff, because that's what we use the roads to recycle waste a lot.
Asphalt.
It's great. But like, so when we damage it, it releases all that stuff into the water as it rains. Good times. So like, it damages our existing infrastructure more, and so now we're gonna have more potholes. That's more damaged vehicles. That's more maintenance costs for America as it goes up more. You know what I mean? Like it's there's a lot that's wrong with electric cars, and the cost of making them, and the battery, and the fact that after 10 years they kind of get scrapped. And I've heard they can go to solar at that point and be used for household batteries, and that's really good. But until that becomes mainstream, right now, after 10 years, they basically become useless and get thrown away. And or get sold as a car, and they need a new battery. That's what usually happens. But
okay,
like, cause
so maybe you can tell me if this is true or not, but I did hear that solar, once a solar panel is used, it can't be used for anything else. It's just trash after that point.
solar panel, yeah, but they last for a really long time. I don't actually know a whole lot about solar, and I know that they're continuously upgrading stuff. But I don't know enough about renewable energy, honestly. But like yeah.
That's fair.
I'm actually trying to get into that. I'm not sure what I'll be doing for my next job, but I'm trying to get LEED certified, which is like for inspecting buildings, making sure they're all sustainable. It's a whole thing. But I'm gonna try to do that. Maybe I don't know. Break out of the. Right now, I just make sure people follow regulation, which just tells people how much they're allowed to pollute, and that how much they're allowed to pollute just isn't like isn't to my temperament. I want to tell them no, And Texas likes this is my opinion. Texas really likes to not hurt the economy, and decisions are made not by me. In my Superfund, we do everything in a way that I like personally. I totally agree with all the decisions made by my section, but typically for inspections, we're newer. I read so much stories. Like we have this agency thing, or anytime we're mentioned in the news, it just goes on this website and we look at it, read it every day, or I read it every day. It goes, yeah. Anyway, but so we're done. You should read that sometime. But like it's not. So sometimes we're not the good guys. We're really quick, just like the IRS, exactly like the IRS. We're really quick to pursue people when they don't have the financial means to defend themselves, because going after people when they have a lawyer is really expensive and sometimes we'll lose. So we don't. So like whenever a factory does something really bad, sometimes we'll fine them. But if they can't afford it, we won't, because we don't want to fuck with their ability to have people working. We'll just be nice, super nice. And if they totally afford it, like Pilgrim's Pride in Nacogdoches, when I lived there, they were constantly just sending untreated effluent into the sewer and just paying the really cheap to them, cheap to their profits, whatever fee it was to the city for them to just get untreated sewage. And that was one of the problems they described to me when I was job interviewing there in 2018.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing. It's like when you have so much money, what's illegal? Like when the things are fine, nothing. Like right now in my hometown, not my hometown, the town I live in currently, much more descriptive. It's just north of Austin. We're getting a new Samsung factory, and that's cool. Jobs. They're building a new Starbucks. All this stuff. I just moved here. I don't care what it looked like before. Everyone whines. I don't whine. I like the new, the urge. It's fun. But right after they started building on that, right after they moved here, it was discovered that the Samsung factory in Austin had been for 280 days straight dumping. I think it was battery waste. It could have been something else, something terrible. I actually don't remember what it was. Might not have been battery waste that tracked whatever I said, dumping something into the river, dumping something for 280 days straight. It was a horrible thing. Don't sue me, Samsung. I might got 284. I'm fucking going straight to jail. But paranoid because it's pocket. And who listens to this? Do you see your viewers? Are you popular?
I have.
Is it just me and your mom? Who listens to you?
15 regular viewers and like 50 or 35 random viewers.
Okay. Cool. That's just a little better. By the time you get big, I'll be at a different job probably because they don't pay me enough. Pittance. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get the whole reason I started this podcast because I want to get into politics eventually.
That's
so
cool.
I want to learn as much as I can about everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to people's stances, if they if they have a foot in the race economically, that's going to be their stance, and that's so frustrating about like our society. I think we need to structure our economy around what is sustainable, not what's sustainable. Big quotes around that, air quotes. I did air quotes, guys, around, but it's around the word sustainable. If it's good for your economy, you know, like it should be the other way around. That's my point.
Yeah. I think there should be a way both can happen at the same time. I think with less, I subscribe more to the Mises theory of economics. You know, the Austrian school of economics, where it's like, well, it's more along labor is a certain amount. I kind of just learned about it, so I'm not very good at dictating.
My philosophy in economics, I also just learned about. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm learning. I just want to just put it out in the ether. That's the theory I kind of follow, and that's more more towards the capitalist side of things. That you can't.
So capitalism inherently, what is capitalism? Let's talk about capitalism instead of communism for a little bit. That'll be fun.
Okay.
So what is capitalism to you? So let's you define it since you like it so much.
I do actually, yeah.
No, you're good, so you should define it.
Capitalism is your inherent right to own things, to own your own property, and to build free enterprise in a free market. Right.
What do you mean by what's a free market?
Free market, free from
define your big terms.
yeah, free from what I would
capital ones.
I would define as overt government regulation, right? So instead of the government telling you have to produce this product this way, you can just produce whatever product you want, right? Within the bounds of a certain framework, right?
Right.
So you can't go out and create like, I don't know, weapons of mass destruction for no reason, right?
Right. So is what you so to continue to further define is what we live in. No, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? We got to define things for our viewers and to make sure that we know we're on the same page. It's like playing a game, playing Monopoly. We got to make sure we're playing by the same house rules and we know about the rules so the other person doesn't cry when they find out that the free parking doesn't mean anything. So that's sad. That's really sad when that happens. But so to continue to define, is the society we live in right now capitalist enough to be free enterprise enough to be capitalism? Or does the government stop you, for example, you or anyone you can think of as an example, from being able to produce the product they want in a way they want?
That's interesting.
Like, is this capitalism, or is this not a free enough market?
This is as capitalistic as you're going to see in a major world power.
But we're talking about like idealism here, right? So this is my idealism, your idealism. What do you think is right? This is capitalism, or is it not capitalism? That's my big question.
Well, it's capitalism.
Like to you.
It's capitalism, but it's not the ideal.
It's not the ideal. So what is? I'm saying to make sure that I'm right before I go on and blah, whatever, is what is wrong with today's version of capitalism? What regulation would you like removed to make this a freer, more just society?
I would remove subsidies.
Subsidies.
Yeah, I hate the
what's
fact
that what's a subsidy? I don't know what a subsidy is.
Okay.
For the sake of our audience.
Here's my position, right? So a subsidy is the government paying a group of people to do something a certain way, right? So the government is paying corn subsidies. They're giving corn farmers or these huge corn corporations, they're super farms. You know what I'm talking about.
So they're a financial incentive to control their behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
I would remove all of those.
So the government shouldn't pay people to dictate their behavior.
The free market, yes.
So removing the subsidies, is there anything else?
Oh yeah. I think Yeah, there shouldn't be corn subsidies. There shouldn't be oil subsidies. There shouldn't be, the government shouldn't be.
I definitely agree. Well, the subsidies we have in agriculture are crazy, I think.
Yeah. And I also believe that the government should act more as a referee more than anything. You know, I believe in environmental regulation. I believe in industrial, making sure that industry follows a certain guidelines for the good of all humanity and are the place that we live, right?
In both safety and environment, I assume.
agree. Yeah. Yeah, that's
So that's the main ones I know about. So that's why I'm not going to talk about shit. But yeah, I'm just. So what else would we change besides subsidies?
See, I don't know enough about the particulars, right?
Yeah.
But
So I just wanted to make sure that this was enough of a capitalist society where I could use the real world examples of what's existing today in a capitalist society as examples of why capitalism is probably not the right answer. And I just wanted to make sure that this big motions of arms around me of the world is enough of an example of capitalism that you will acknowledge that it fits.
Because it's not as if I could go out tomorrow and start my own business.
No.
Right?
Why not? You totally could. Don't you have an automatic guaranteed small business loan from the VA?
Well,
because you are in the military. Yeah,
right.
You chose in a free market because this is a free market that you chose to sacrifice time and a little bit of personal freedom to get certain things. Right? Free market. You wanted it. You got it. They offered it. All that good shit. Right? So now you have guaranteed access to small business loan. Why can't you start a small business? Because I'm just saying this is a free market, right? I just wanted anyway, the point, my general point is capitalism, the love of profit, the concept of profit is the best, the concept of shareholders and the ever exponential need for resources, ever exponential need to pay people less, to get more out of it. It just causes inequality, not just inequality, but structural inequality. And especially when there's components like racism, like systematic white supremacy, and they're not just between class warfare, but when there's actual class warfare and the extra-cultural components added in, I think that the current state of the world today, as it is, especially just in America, is proof that capitalism is not the answer.
I don't think capitalism is
not for most people. I think everyone wants it to be their answer, and they think if only then it would be my answer. And everyone doesn't want to. Everyone loves the devil they know. No one wants to change. No one likes the idea of suicide by revolution. There's some quotes about that, but I don't know. But I don't want to be suicided by revolution either. I don't even think we should even do a revolution. I think we should just start giving people the things that they need and create systems like little ecospheres of like, okay, food is growing here. We need to create vertical farms. We need to stop oil entirely. We need to create trains to get people from city to city and whatever it takes, like trains within the city to get them around so people don't need cars, and have cars that people can use if they want to have a little bit of extra freedom, like rental or own, whatever. But no one needs to need a car. And I think that taxing people is probably the easiest way. Like, everyone pooling their resources, everyone pooling their money. It's probably the easiest way to pay for these things. I think that the government shouldn't be out to get a profit. I think that the government, if they know how to do, or if they know the taxes already, shouldn't make us do our own taxes, trying to cheat us. I think a lot of things.
The IRS should definitely be abolished, first of all. I agree with you there. But
I hate them so much. Or they should just do our fucking taxes right from the get-go for us. Just present us. They know how much we owe. Yeah. You know how much we earn. There's no need to take more than that. Fuck a refund. Just don't attack more. Don't take. We should all. Our money should go to a very crystal clear structure. I want to know the paintbrushes that the military buys. I want to know how much they are. I want to know why they didn't get them at Lowe's. That kind of thing. Because I remember seeing the logistics for that shit when I was training for that the stupid 3M position where you fucking ordered stuff, repair parts petty officer or whatever. Yeah. So I was training for that, and I watched somebody ordering some stuff. $60 paintbrushes we were going to use once and throw away. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Why can't we get them at Lowe's? This is making me upset because that's where taxpayer money goes. Government waste and contracts that are very much cited against the taxpayer and whatever, etc. Bureaucracy. The problems with bureaucracy is very much described and lamented by Marx. Marx would have agreed with most of the things you believe.
Okay. See, how do you have a communist system without bureaucracy? You can't. It is
Yeah,
an
you
entire
totally do.
bureaucracy created around a utopian vision. That's the whole thing.
No. So first we gotta define the word bureaucracy,
Bureaucracy
right? Because
is
you gotta define all the big words. Because you know what I mean? It's just like in science when people say the word theory, it means a very specific word. When we talk about political science, the word it means something very specific. So what does bureaucracy mean to you?
it is that's a hard word to define. It's red tape. It's government paperwork. It's the paperwork that keeps you from getting from A to B.
It's
That
the
is
bullshit.
the best way for me to explain it.
Yeah.
Without being
So
crass.
so when you look at the way the government structure, or current government legislative, it's entirely bureaucracy. It's everything. Everything is between A and B. Like when you have a problem at A and you're like, okay, I need a fuel or whatever, and then they have all this bullshit and they never get to B because they're too busy giving each other fucking tax cuts and rebates and different holidays. You know, like everything's bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, you're right, is the problem. It's everything in between. And in the communist society, so according to Marx, and this is again evolved over time, Marx wrote different things, and all I know is that I've read like 3 books, and I agree with everything that they said, and it was just like, oh my god, I've always believed this. Like I don't know if you remember, but when you and I played Soul Calibur, when everyone played Soul Calibur in my room, I always had this weird way where I thought that whoever lost should not pass the controller, whoever won should pass the controller, because that just inherently always made more sense when I was younger. It still makes sense to me to this day because it's more fun. Because if someone who just wins over and over, then he's just going to get better because he's unrusty. You know, he's just practicing. He's just, never giving it up. And now everyone else has to share this other controller because he's capitalized on it. He's a winner. He's the winner, you know? So he's just going to get better. He's never going to lose his place. And everyone else is just going to practice every now and then, every 7th try, right? So they're never going to get the chance to improve. So that one person is eventually going to have fun at first, but eventually he's not going to have a challenge. He's not going to have a good time because other people aren't improving. And they're just getting frustrated because he keeps whooping their ass. And eventually he gets bored, you know? But if he passed the fucking controller, you know what I mean? Then everyone gets, I'm so sorry, podcast listeners. I'm so sorry. That was, anyway. But then he passed the controller. The people will be able to get better and improve. And everyone will go to rise together and just get better, you know? And then pretty soon we're all doing cool combos. And it's not only a joy to play, it's a joy to watch. Right? That's just, and if we structured society that way, you know, if the people who needed the resources got the resources, like if there was going to be any what you would call social programs, I don't call those social programs because I don't think that we should use. I think that's going to be the only purpose of the government. The only purpose of the government is what I think you would probably call social programs, is to make sure that the people who needed it had it. People who could provide it for themselves can provide it for themselves and probably should. And I think that if you give to society what you can and take what you need, it's probably more than enough if we do things efficiently.
Yeah.
And stop doing paper plates. Like things like paper plates. See, we have so much little water. This is a rant. There's so much little water in our country, and so many different cities are sinking and stuff. Like if the whole Southwest is about to dry out even further, we should completely eradicate whole industries that we define, that the government, someone, maybe not this government, a group of people at least, should define are unnecessary, like paper plates.
Yeah.
It's a big water usage. You just look into the water usage on that and then be like, well, does it matter if I take a 10-minute long shower or a 20-minute long shower?
Yes.
Does it matter? Personally, no, not. Because if everyone takes an hour-long shower, that is not a single day at the paper plate industry.
Right.
It's crazy.
So the whole thing about water, right? So I know a lot about water just because that's my job.
That's good.
Underneath Los Angeles and up into groundwater, right? 95% of our fresh water comes from the groundwater, right?
And how much of that groundwater is used for industrial versus domestic?
I couldn't tell you that.
Because it's pretty significantly, it's going to be the biggest water use in the country is at industry, and then it's agriculture, and then it's a few other things, and then it's domestic.
I know agriculture uses a lot, so you go by like acre yards, and it's like
because we don't grow things in the right places. Why are we growing anything water intensive in South California? We shouldn't. If we need it grown in South California, it's just a wrong need. We just don't need it grown there. There's not water there. We should use the resources we have where they are because they're needed there by everything else, by the ecosystem that creates us a healthy environment.
Yeah.
And I think that should be the basis of society because we've gotten to such a scale that we have to take that into account.
Right. So if you can't grow it in Southern California, where do you grow it?
It depends on what you're talking about. I think everyone should eat local. And I think greenhouses and stuff like that and vertical farm can be done really well. It's kind of expensive for the initial installation for vertical farms, I'm sure. But they can be done really well with very little water, and you can grow lots of things where they wouldn't naturally grow. But like you can, like if you start relying on bulbs for electricity for your light, then that's not going to make sense for electricity. So it's really a factor of your sunlight. Wherever there's sunlight, you can grow whatever you need. But you just need to create the infrastructure and forget about conventional farming. If you need to till it, don't do it.
I live in the desert. I live in Death Valley. This isn't really good growing weather.
That's rough. You bought a house in Death Valley?
I did, yeah.
Oh, man. Eventually, I'm going to come to California. I should visit you if you're down. Save me an Airbnb for a day, Yeah. Cool. Bring my, I got a really young girlfriend. Yeah. What's up? Got her in college.
Nice. Cool.
Good times.
Yeah.
But
where were we? I got lost. So, okay.
I was ranting.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was good.
It's a podcast, right? You can edit all the dumb stuff.
The name of the podcast is Ramblings of a Madman. So
yeah, that's whatever you want to do.
That's exactly it. Yeah. That's the genius.
I'm glad this won't be like a video recorded thing, or you're gonna do this on YouTube this one day.
I am doing it on YouTube too.
Okay, well, if you see anything that you shouldn't see, blur it out before it goes to YouTube. Just zoom in and inspect.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. There's nothing back there. Oh, you cleaned it. Twilight. I need you to blur that.
It's all right. My face is covering your Twilight book, so it's all right. And then Batman over there. I guess crazy.
Fuck yeah. Yep.
Do you see the new Batman movie?
Yeah, I just watched it actually a few minutes ago. I did not. I was not a fan. Nope.
Really?
I'm very critical of movies sometimes. Not all. I like a lot of movies. I'm not always unhappy with them. But I was not a fan of very many scenes in that movie. It was pretty atrocious.
Yeah. There is theory out there that the guy in that last scene, I was laughing, is supposed to be the Joker.
It was pretty obviously the Joker. But the scene before they switched to it, I turned to my girlfriend and I was like, this is so fucking predictable. They're about to hint at the Joker in the next movie. And they switched over and this guy was like, and a clown. And we're just like, it was the moment he said, I am vengeance. I was like, oh my God, what did they do? They spent $200 million on, didn't have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I was so confused about that score. Have you seen Titans? Because that's a good example of what I expect a movie, even a movie, should rise to. That show, the HBO show, was 100% better than that $200 million blockbuster. First season, it's on HBO. The first 2 seasons are really top notch compared to the Batman movie. But they're what I expect. If I wanted a gritty, grungy, violent, adult superhero violent show or movie, that's what I want. And I just want that as an example to all the viewers out there who is just like, this guy's a hater. He just hates Batman. I love Batman. I love the trilogy, the last trilogy, not the. I never saw. Yeah, I love Christian Bale, the Christian Bale trilogy. I never saw any of the Ben Affleck stuff.
I like Ben Affleck.
I don't mind them. I just never saw the movies because I heard they were bad before I had the opportunity, so I just never made the time.
Yeah.
But I really liked the Christian Bale trilogy. It was really good. But the Titans, you should watch that if you like the same thing. It's about the Teen Titans if they were adults and a little more grungy, a little bloody, hot. Good times.
Supposed to have a Nightwing in there instead of Robin?
Both. It's Robin. Spoiler, guys. Do you want spoiler?
Yeah.
It has Robin. It has Robin and Robin as he transitions into Nightwing. There's a different Robin at the same time in the story as Robin transitioning to Nightwing.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah, good. It's good. It's good shit. I don't know anything about comics, so I didn't know that was going to happen. But I knew who Nightwing was because I played a video game or two, and I was very excited that was the story. I was like, oh.
Yeah, Dick Grayson's one of my favorite Robins.
Dude, the actor does this very superb job, I think.
Yeah.
The violence. I love some good realistic violence. I love when they show you recovering the episodes after. I love all that stuff. Yeah. I don't know why. and this was just good. Dick Grayson was a very good actor, and he was the main character, obviously. So.
I'll check it out. I have HBO too, so I can.
You really should. It falls out of quality. The last season was not the best, in my opinion. I don't know what happens. I think that when shows get really good, the directors move on. I'm guessing, or the writers move on.
Oh, it's amazing how often that happens. I don't think it's always the director either. I think it's just the story.
Yeah, actually, I think I heard you talk about this on one of your previous podcasts, but
I may have. I don't know.
could be wrong. Dude, I was really happy to hear when you talked about conspiracy theories that you, as soon as you started talking about jet streams, I was like, oh god, this is gonna be horrible. And you were like, it's condensation. And I was like, yes. Cheers for Justin. It's awesome. Yeah, I was worried for a second. I was like, come on, you can Google it. It's Googleable. But we do poisonous from planes through pesticide, and it's not always apparent the health effects that what they're doing when they do it, or on who. It's not always apparent on who's around when they do it. So, like a lot of the theories on all that stuff, I think is intermixed with the truth of pesticide getting dropped on cities, getting dropped on agriculture workers, and so forth. So you should look that up. It's not an conspiracy theory as much as it's just an environmental justice topic that'll make you cringe.
Pesticides are weird. Okay, because we use them to kill. It's a poison that we use to kill things that eat our crops. I guess the question I have is, how else would you do it? Because I mean, I guess you could use spiders, or just fucking.
That would be interesting. I'm not knowledgeable enough about agriculture to say how we can transition normal everyday agriculture without going, because I know going organic or pesticide free, our phrase, is very inefficient. It's very it's risking it. Like I knew a beekeeper in college. He was a teacher who talked about trying to at one point he tried to do it organic and no pesticides, and he just like it was every other year he lost all his bees. And that's just because that's how life works, Jesus. So you don't have consistent crops if you don't do it chemically. And I don't think there is like a really easy way. But what I would suggest is that we abandon conventional farming, put it in vertical farms, and then generally speaking, a lot of the things that you would use pesticides for aren't an issue, and the other things we can probably figure out a better way than conventional pesticides. Because there's certain ways that we can turn pesticides called like endocides, for example, that are like a pesticide that is only susceptible to that species, usually made from that species itself in some way, I think. So but there's other ways that we can just remove that. Like I know a huge problem, and one of the reasons why we're constantly treating the soil with pesticides or treating the soil to make it acidic is for nematodes. You know what nematodes are?
They're little bugs, I assume.
They're kind of like worms. They live in the soil. When people talk about ringworm or any kind of parasite worm, using the word worm and a parasite, that's what it's all used in the nematode family. They live in the soil. They live in water. And they get to you through undercooked pig. They get to you through undercooked fish. They get to you through like shellfish specifically, and soil. When you touch in water, when you drink water, untreated water, or when you're walking around and you're touching soil, sometimes they'll go through your skin. Just right absorbed, barefoot kids, and they'll live in you, and they have various life cycles. And the one in swine is particularly bad because part of the life cycle is you go to your brain where they hatch eggs, bad stuff. So we treat the soil a lot from those and stuff like that, and we wouldn't have that if you wasn't using natural soil. If you or you know what I mean, if you were using it in a controlled space, you wouldn't have the need for a lot of the issues. Is part of the point. But I'm not. I feel like an agriculture person, and people who are more about greenhouses and just general water. I think some places we probably can use the soil. I just know that conventional farming ruins the structure of the soil, which is a natural resource that we can't even it's what's non-renewable. It's just not renewable. We can't fix it. We can't fix it, and we can't replicate it. The structure of the soil is vitally important, and as we destroy it through conventional farming, that's what caused the Dust Bowl. We try and changed how we do with a lot of our agriculture since then, but it's still continue. What we do now is we tend to over fertilize everything, and then as it rains and as we water, it goes down into the water channel, and it ends up in the wherever everything goes down. Here is to be the Mississippi. I don't know where in California where all the water goes, but we have a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. And it's just because all the fertilizer goes in there, and it over fertilizes the plant plankton, which multiply, and then they don't have enough food, so they all die at the same time, or as they're made, basically, in masses. And as they biodegrade, they could remove all of the oxygen from the water. So it creates this, in which everything needs, all fish, all plants need the oxygen. So as it creates this massive dead zone, there's the whole of life, a whole of dead, no life, like a desert in the ocean kind of thing. And it's because we're just pumping fertilizer in the soil, and we should just do it differently. We should do it in a way that, like, if we did vertical farms everywhere close to population centers, and then only did conventional farming for more subsistence in certain areas, like areas that just had good soil for agriculture or whatever, sure, they already have the infrastructure. Why destroy it? You don't need it. You don't need to. You don't need to build stuff. They have it. It's good. But like places like California and places like New York and everywhere that in Texas, everywhere that has huge population centers needs to have, in my opinion, vertical farms close to source, so that way they can feed the population without all the excess transportation and without the food deserts that create a lot of people's health issues.
I've also heard about crop rotations.
Yeah, that helps with some soil structure, and that's what we do necessary to make it enough to hold life, but it doesn't keep the structure enough to hold the nutrients. Because the soil used to be able to hold nutrients because there was layers and layers and layers of organic material. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, since we've tilled it a few times, we've destroyed that natural resource, and it'll never get to as awesome as it was.
So I suppose the major cons of doing the vertical farming, like you're talking, would be the cost, and then probably higher water usage, I would imagine.
Lower water usage. They can grow because they genetically modify crops to do a lot of things, and because like right now, most of the water, if you think about like a plant and where it is in the soil, most of the water that like a plant needs, it gets when it rains, or if there's a high enough water table for the capillary fringe. The shit. All these words are. And if you don't know if they are, readers, look them up. They're not. I don't care. But so it's a very limited amount of the water that's there that they have access to. So they don't actually need much water. And if you think about like the when we water things, and from the agriculture, there's not from the natural. There's already water there. Everything's growing naturally. But from the agriculture irrigation standpoint, when we water something, we it hits where it needs to go, and it just keeps going. It goes down to the water table. It goes to the river. It just kind of keeps going. We use way more water when we do irrigation than it would just using the exact amount of water it needs. It's a very controlled environment. But there's lots of vertical farms out there already being made, but it's kind of an evolving industry, and it is extremely expensive comparatively. But it's similarly expensive as all the shipping, the subsidies, and all this other stuff that they use now to keep our agriculture system afloat. Because the subsidies are part of the cost we use. Because if we want these farmers to grow food, we have to pay them whether or not we eat that food or not, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that's part of the cost of conventional farming, right? So food is expensive. Getting food for a whole system of people, crazy amounts of people, is almost an impossible task. So I just think that it's a much better way if we were to think about it in small communities. So that way there was resources of food where there's people. And we know that those populations, wherever they are, have a source of food. And then we know that the populations, wherever they are, there's enough houses, and we should just organize resources in whatever way we need. And I'm sure we can do that without just taking things from people at gunpoint. Eminent domain is a powerful tool that has been overutilized for economic reasons and not enough for like society structuring through like sustainable community development, sustainable community infrastructure, and landscape ecology. You know what I mean? Like the things that are like that fit together in a system. That's how eminent domain should be used, I think.
I think it should be used sparingly, if anything, but I don't know. I don't know enough about eminent domain to be able to make a judgment call. I know,
right? Well,
from what I know about it,
yeah.
I know that it's the government saying that they need this land for this thing, like they're building
for whatever they need, almost any reason.
Yeah.
almost any reason. Like there's a lot of cases. There's one case that was really pivotal where the government got it for economic reasons, just to build a strip mall that no one needed, someone wanted, and they were like, "Hey, it'd be great for the community." And the government took someone's land, and it was a really pivotal case. Went to the Supreme Court. It was in the East Coast somewhere. Big deal a long time ago, and now it basically allows the eminent domain to be used really haphazardly. I just think it needs to be used. I think that's how we should restructure society. Because like you don't like if you had a house, they say where the computer, basically the computer said we needed a water treatment plant, right? You should take your house, take it, and you should get paid for it. It shouldn't be at gunpoint, and it should be like a fair market value, or maybe you should be just go get something that you think is a fair market value in replacement, and they should just swap you. That kind of thing. Like no matter what the fair market value is, because right now you might get screwed, especially. Like if in the market like now, you should be able to at least have a house like your house somewhere, or let's get paid for it. But either way, we're like all that money. I don't know everyone's got to make a profit, and that like little 30% of profit that everyone takes on everything they do adds up, and it makes things really unsustainable fast as more and more people get in the system in between people. So I just think that structuring society around profit is bound to be inefficient. Not just like creating inequalities, but just inefficient. You and I aren't living our best lives. We could have flying cars and stuff, if the society was structured not only more fairly but more efficient.
I don't know about all that.
Well, I know in Cushing, Texas, which is far east Texas, it's near Louisiana, has a power refinery, right? That they only turn on when Austin wants power, which is all the way across the state, right? And they just turn it on at that time, and only then. And a good percentage of their power is just lost to the distance, of the cables. And it's because of when they built this thing, everything's connected, so they can just send it basically up whatever, So when they built this thing, they were like, who was going to pay us the most, right? The free market chose Austin, right? So when like Hurricane Katrina, or all the hurricanes, goes right up the border of Louisiana and Texas, and everyone doesn't have power, that machine didn't turn on because Austin didn't need power, Like it's just society isn't gonna when the Texas froze and everyone didn't have the infrastructure here because it wasn't profitable to spend freeze, like insulation, whatever, in a hot ass state because it never gets cold here. It wasn't a good idea for the profit margin, so they didn't do it. So we lost everything. We had all these different places that even though they could have turned on and they weren't frozen or whatever, it just wasn't profitable at that moment because no one was willing to pay them the huge cost it would cost them to turn it on. It wasn't about what people needed and what we had. It was about who can make money off of this, and if people were willing to pay that. And that's the way capitalism, in my opinion, that is the problem with capitalism. It's not about what we have and who needs it, who's around. It's not about people, right, profits, and the environment. It's focused on profits, which I think is just sheerly unsustainable. Because I think profits, people being able to have a good living based on their input into society, I don't think this is necessarily a wrong thing. I think that letting people starve and letting people be houseless because they don't have enough money to give someone else a little bit extra. I think I should be able to get a mortgage because I can't afford my rent. A mortgage would be cheaper, but because people, what I mean? Like it's all structured. I'm a government servant. I can't live I work in the capital of Texas. I can't afford to live in the county the capital is in because rent is so high. I had to move an hour away from work because we don't get raises at the same rate of inflation, where we don't get raises at the same rate. I think the government should control things like that. I don't think our rent should be able to be raised, for example, at that fast. I went from paying $1,000 a month to $1,200 the next year to $1,400 the next year, and I was getting raises that lined with that. So it was like the same. I had the money. I wasn't broke, but I never like made more money as I got promotions. And then like I wasn't going to pay $1,400, and I was like, this is crazy. So I had to move into Taylor, which is a wonderful little town.
Yeah, I was living in fucking Oxnard, California, just about, I don't know, an hour and a half outside LA. $2,000 a month for a one bedroom, one bath.
Yeah, that's kind of Austin prices. We were way north Austin though, living in kind of like a odd spot, so it was really cheap.
Really?
Right next to my job, it was the perfect place. I literally walked across the street to my work. It was super convenient. But then COVID happened, so I never walked to work. And then as soon as we moved an hour away, telework ended.
I don't
That's
think
how life works.
I don't think people are meant to live in big cities like that. Just like on top of each other and in just such a huge.
I definitely don't
congested
think that
place.
we evolved in that atmosphere. I do not.
I think it's just bad for our mental health.
I
The
think
way
it can
we
be
see
good
the
for
world.
mental health. I think that it's definitely the most efficient way to live. I know that like powering homes when they're all grouped together is much easier than powering homes when they're far apart. It's a
Yeah,
lot easier to give people food, to give people jobs.
I agree.
I just think that we need to take into account mental health and make areas walkable and all the problems in society like this whole the more green we have around and like right now it's one of the ways that you can see white supremacy and inequality through life is where there's trees. Look around, and I'm saying it's called redlining. At a certain point, uh, not very long ago, I don't know the decade, so I'm not going to say a decade. But let's just say sometime between giving all colors of society the right to vote, and including now, they have these areas called red line districts. You know what those are?
Yeah.
What are they?
Back. All right. So back
For our
in the
readers.
'70s. In the '70s, what they did was they do districts based on what community lived in those districts. Right. They do these, what they called redlining, like you were just saying. The people who lived in those districts got a certain amount of funding and a certain amount of resources from the city based on what the district was.
Fuck yeah, and that was bad, right? That was in the '70s, right? We don't do that. We don't do that no more. Is that something?
It's
Think
illegal.
about this. We do. Yeah,
It is
we do.
illegal.
No. Is
That
it?
is not redistricting. What you're talking
No.
about, what we do now is gerrymandering, and that's
No,
different.
no. That's
Those are
voting
political-
rights. That's a whole
those are
different
political
bag of
districts.
worms that I'm not even talking about.
Okay, well, there's redlining
Because
is
that's
illegal.
that's
does
the
that.
reason why we can't vote ourselves to freedom. But that's a whole different bag of worms that I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the way that the society is still promoting white supremacy and keeping people down.
White supremacy.
I know you were gonna roll your eyes. That's why I'm using that phrase instead of just like class warfare or whatever else. It's totally white supremacy. Anyway, check us out. So we don't do that anymore because that's bad, right? Because that's racism. Redlining sounds bad, right? Does it sound bad to you? Do you think that's bad?
Well, semantically, I guess, yeah.
So semantically, you think redlining is bad. Well, I think redlining is bad because it's bad, right? Anyway, so the way we do it now is we don't say the brown people are over there and they don't get trees. What we do now is we we make it where if they get trees or not is dependent on how much that person's tax bracket is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if a place has a lot of apartments, for example, and everyone lives there is not even in single family homes because they can't even afford a mortgage, they can only afford a rent, right? So those places get a lot less in funding from the state, from whatever, for greenery. You can look this up. It's taxes. Property taxes is racist. Property taxes are racist because the way they're used, the way schools are made. Like I had a friend who I went to college with. When you go to college, you talk to a lot of people who had different life experience. It's very much similar to the Navy, right? But the Navy, everyone's poor because everyone decided to join the military, right? No one's like, I was super fucking privileged because everyone like needed the free education or everyone had a history of service in their family or something, some reason, you know? But it was all similar. There was a bracket, you know, you never met heirs, you know, whatever. Not that I'm an heir, but like in college, I met some fucking privileged people, which I had never talked to before. I don't think in my entire life. People who had really nice houses. I'm talking like, sure, everyone had nice houses. Everyone they knew had nice houses. So the tax bracket was so different that their school was dramatically different, and they had like 10 or 15 different tracks that they could take to high school to get them coding certifications, to become nurses, to do all this crazy stuff. They'd already taken half the classes I was taking in high school, and I don't mean as dual credit, I just mean as provided by their teachers who were just accredited and just taught the classes as like all AP courses. So they were just going through their regular high school experience, they all were given introductory college classes. So they had the leg up, even though they started with a leg up. They got paid tutors because their parents could afford it if they needed it, and they got free iPads because even though they could afford it and they had one at home, but they got one from the school, because their taxes, because they had so much, because their percentage that they paid went so high that they had such a different life experience. They lived in such a different America than me, or whoever, I'm not going to go into my crap because whatever, alcoholism is the reason why I had a weird childhood, nothing to do with, anyway, the point is, there's very different property taxes.
Yeah.
It's how it starts. Winners and losers, Does your parent live in a nice area? And that's why the people who hoof it and they go from a poor area to a nice area and they fucking beat themselves to death trying to pay that expensive rent, that they're doing that for their kids because now their kids can go to a nice school, can have friends who do nice things in their life, instead of just like, that'd be nice, living the dream. They go skiing and stuff because they moved to the different area code. You know what I mean? To live in a different America. Like, it's wild, the different states that we have, the different classes that we have, and the experience between the two. Yeah.
So what would be the first step of fixing that? Would it be just to get rid of districts? Have everybody funded the exact same? You're in this city, the city has this pot of money, and that pot of money gets evenly distributed between every school.
Probably. I think that people who decide that things should be our educators. I think, first of all, the people who decide.
Well, it's all teachers unions.
Yeah, but teachers unions don't decide those things. Teachers unions try to decide those things, and they get fought. So why do we have standardized testing? Teachers unions are very against it. Teachers in general are against it. Professors in teaching adults and teaching children are against standardized testing. Why do we have it?
They're not all against it.
They are, just about. Look at you should check out the numbers on that. The people, Betsy DeVos was the Secretary of Education for Trump or whoever. And I'm not being like, oh, fuck Trump, but fuck Trump. But I'm just saying, yeah, but I'm not, that was just a caveat. But I'm not, Betsy DeVos is a good example of someone who, she makes decisions about education because she was in the Secretary of Education. She didn't ask the unions their opinion. During this pandemic, when the teachers unions are trying to keep their teachers' jobs, even though the teachers don't want to be in a room full of unvaccinated kids, teachers' unions teachers are getting fired. They don't make decisions. The government makes decisions. Scientists don't make decisions about climate change. The government makes decisions about climate change. I think that the first step towards anything is stop listening to me because I don't know shit about shit, is listen to the people who know the most about the subject and let them make the decisions about it. And I think that they'll probably, everyone who knows the most about every subject making the decisions about the subject will probably take us in the right direction for society. And I'm talking including social workers in making decisions about how the social world is. Everything should be decided by the people in the industry. But some industries are just bad, and there should be watchdogs to make sure that everyone's making the right decisions. Because you don't want like a rogue doctor organization to kill everyone, or a rogue oil company to, for example, investigate climate change in the 80s, prove that they were causing climate change almost single-handedly, and then hush it up. Thanks, ExxonMobil. Exxon. It's a public thing. They investigated climate change, figured out that it was real, that anthropogenic climate change was real, and that the oil industry was the leading cause. And they said, oh, and they just sat on the information until the 2000 something when someone released it. But I think it was Exxon. Might have been Chevron. I don't remember. Someone's gonna sue me for libel. But you should look that up. I'm just saying that the government should be the watchdogs, if anything, but the people in society who know the most about the subject should be the ones who make the decisions. And then people should watch that for ethical mayhem, Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't worry about getting sued for libel because you'd have to write it down for it to be libel.
Yeah. Well, slander, my bad.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, it's usually the opposite way. People are usually like, I read this and it's slander because they don't know what libel means and I get it twisted. My bad. I'm an idiot. It's fine.
I'm just giving you shit, dude. It's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with most of that.
Right?
think-
That's what I told you. Is I figured you and I would agree on most of it, and everything I said about how society should be structured was something that I always kind of thought. Weirdly enough, but it's also described in the 45-page pamphlet in single syllable words. You know what I'm talking about? That was written single syllable words. I'm talking like idiot proof. That was written by Marx and I think Marx and Lenin. I could be wrong. Marx and Engels together. They wrote it to be an idiot proof guide. They're like, no, guys, workers have rights. Don't let them treat you this way. Don't let the propaganda fool you.
Hey,
And the propaganda fooled them.
I'm all for unionization, man. Let's just go.
Dude,
Unionize.
if you believe in unionization, then you are almost an anti-capitalist.
Ugh.
Like you're right there with me. You're my comrade if you believe in unions. Because that's all. Dude, you know what a hammer and sickle mean? It's just union. It's the union of unions.
Yeah.
That's all the hammer and sickle was meant to symbolize.
See,
the
the
unions
problem-
coming together to represent the workers.
The problem with the problem with communism is it would be too difficult to implement it. Period. You couldn't
But see,
do that
that's
with a
why
country-
socialism exists.
You couldn't do that.
Is as the
with a country
transition
this
state.
big. You couldn't do that with as much different industries as we have. You can't control that with one entity, let alone one.
You wouldn't. It would be a network of people controlling themselves.
Yeah, but
that's what communism is. It's
you have to-
communists interacting as a network.
See, what happens is that's the idea when it begins with, right? You have all these networks, and then all of a sudden,
But it's never
starts to work its
been
way up to a
enacted. It's
point,
never.
And then that point becomes a totalitarian leader, and then everything just goes.
Well, again, this 45-page pamphlet that I'm just saying, this 45-page pamphlet that separates everyone describes who this leadership is, and this leadership is basically jury duty of random people who get paid a worker's wage, and there's no bureaucracy because they can only go up for a certain amount of time, like a jury. They have certain amount of things in their docket. You know, like these are the decisions we have to make as a group.
See,
And they fulfill their jury duty, and then they go home. They don't have time to be a bureaucracy because it's like a jury duty. Like this, I'm just saying this 45-page pamphlet. I'm just saying I can send it to you. And weirdly enough, Amazon sells it for $3, which is almost exactly their shipping charge. So it's kind of like Amazon is disseminating propaganda for the cost of the delivery. I'll totally send you a copy if you'll read it.
that's ironic because I think that if any company needs a union, it's Amazon.
I wholeheartedly agree, but I'm just saying you'll know what people are talking about when they say they're communists. This is specifically Marxist-Leninist communists, because there's a lot of different flavors of communism, all based on which book they read, basically.
I'll give it its fair shot. But
Yeah, well, in Messenger, send me your address, and I'll send it to you via Amazon. I've done it to a lot of people. Just read it, because no one's read it so far. I've also sent a lot of people bidets, but I'm not going to send you a bidet. But you should get a bidet. Toilet paper's for plebes.
yeah, I had one at my old place.
It's so nice. I'm never going back.
I think I accidentally left it hooked up. I think I forgot to take it, so I gotta get it.
Yeah, we just threw ours away when we moved. But yeah, they're $30. We just didn't want to clean it after that. Got a different one. Yay, waste. Fucking recycle. Whatever. But yeah, honestly, like I feel like most of what everyone hates about communism is honestly just the idea that of what they're told in propaganda. Like most people don't. A lot of people will agree with almost everything they say, and a lot of people just want other people to have it hard because they did. And some people just want to be better than other people. And there's a lot of other reasons too. But I think most of the reason is because they don't know what communism means. They only know what was defined by fucking somebody in some movie. I don't know.
There we go. Okay, so that was good. Where were we?
I completely lost topic, but yeah, at this point, we're just gonna cut it. Just avoid. You could always just cut the end of, at the very least, cut the end of like the last like whole thought we had, and then. But like you said, no one's gonna listen to an hour and 15 minutes. So you might just want to cut out a lot of the ramble, or even just go back and be like, everything after he said was here was just fucking stupid. So that's what I would do. You just add this outro.
That's what happens. You get lost in the convo. It was a good convo.
Yeah, but if you want, I could straight up send you the manifesto, and we could always have one later down the road. And after you read the 45-page children's book.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I'll look into it. Yeah, for sure.
It's really easy.
Read that, and then I'll bring some more. I'm going to do some more research on my guy, and then we'll compare and see how. So it
That,
goes.
that'll be good.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it. Remember to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Right, you can find me on Twitter at Reverse Rob Reiner, at Reverse Rob Reiner. That's me. And where can they find you?
I do not exist on the social media space. LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. Give me a job. 100 grand a year.
There you go.
I will do something, whatever you want.
100%. And remember, if whoever likes this video, comments, and subscribes, I will be picking one random winner, and I will give them $100. Financial incentive, capitalism, baby.